Max Verstappen has just been seen on Toto Wolff's yacht in Sardinia. Stay until the end to know everything about the brutal contract offered to the Red Bull driver. Subscribe to stay informed about the latest Formula One news. Max Verstappen's presence in Sardinia, casually stepping off his private jet under the Mediterranean sun, might have appeared like just another off-season luxury escape. But in Formula One, nothing is ever truly accidental. Every landing strip tells a story. Every detour hints at intention. And when his aircraft was seen parked alarmingly close to Toto Wolff's signature Gulfstream, alarm bells didn't just ring, they detonated. Behind the cameras, beyond the PR-smooth surfaces, something massive is brewing. What once felt like a fantasy whispered among a few insiders has erupted into a calculated maneuver with the potential to realign the very axis of the sport. The reigning world champion isn't just entertaining the idea of switching camps, he's taking real steps toward it. Conversations that once lived in shadows are now being spoken behind tightly secured villa doors and encrypted calls. If nothing derails the momentum already building, 2026 won't simply be a regulatory shift. It could become the most astonishing turning point in the modern history of Formula One. For nearly a decade, Verstappen was viewed as the immovable pillar of Red Bull, their ultimate weapon. The golden product of their junior pipeline, refined through thousands of hours in simulators, test benches, wind tunnels, and mental conditioning. The car was molded around him, the team revolved around his every instinct. Together, they created a force so dominant it bent the grid to its will. But everything has changed. The foundation that once felt unshakable is now riddled with instability. Christian Horner, the team principal who stood beside Max through every challenge, controversy, and championship climb, is gone. Dismissed not with a respectful send-off, but amid controversy, in a storm of public and private betrayal. And while Red Bull attempted to present the move as a necessary house-cleaning exercise, insiders know this wasn't about damage control, it was a coup. A power shift born of corporate pressure, boardroom rivalries, and hidden agendas. What Red Bull sacrificed in PR gains, they may have lost tenfold in loyalty. Verstappen didn't just lose a boss, he lost a protector, a strategist, a confidant. That exit, paired with the confirmed departure of Adrian Newey, the engineering sorcerer who quietly sculpted every title-winning car Max ever drove, has left the reigning champ more exposed than ever. He's watching the team he once called home slowly morph into something unfamiliar. New personnel, conflicting leadership voices, fractured vision, and growing tensions with the corporate arms of the Red Bull empire have left him isolated. And if there's one thing Verstappen has never tolerated, it's uncertainty. Subscribe to stay informed about the latest Formula One news. Meanwhile, Mercedes isn't just rebuilding. They're evolving. What once looked like decline now feels like incubation. A reset. After grappling with a flawed aero concept and internal restructuring, the Brackley-based outfit is sharpening its weapons for 2026, a season that promises not just fresh regulations, but a total reshaping of the competitive order. Wolff, never one to chase headlines without substance, has remained patient. But beneath his cool exterior lies a mind obsessed with timing, leverage, and legacy. He sees the shifting tides. He understands that bringing Verstappen into the fold would do more than elevate Mercedes back to the front. It would redefine dominance. And he knows exactly what's at stake. Verstappen, ever strategic, isn't rushing, but he's not hesitating either. Those meetings in Sardinia, far away from microphones and media scrums, weren't friendly catch-ups. They were evaluations. Proposals. Roadmaps. Financials were outlined. Technical visions were debated. Leadership philosophies were compared. Max is no longer just thinking about car performance. He's calculating alignment, infrastructure, adaptability, and how a move could reshape his legacy. He's conquered one empire. Now he's asking, can I build another? Red Bull's leadership, scrambling behind closed doors, has entered damage control mode. Promises of upgraded facilities, a refreshed leadership team, and renewed commitment to Verstappen's preferences are flowing at full volume. But none of it masks the real issue. Their strongest asset no longer feels anchored. They're not just trying to retain a driver, they're trying to convince him the future is still worth trusting. And time is running out. Because every day that passes without clarity is another inch closer to the exit door. Wolff, ever the tactician, is using silence as his most effective weapon. No confirmations. No denials. Just smiles and cryptic phrases during press briefings. He doesn't need to sell anything publicly, because behind the scenes, Verstappen is already intrigued. The idea of taking on a new challenge, of stepping into the cockpit once graced by Hamilton, of rebuilding the kingdom with new allies and new technology, is as thrilling as it is dangerous. But that danger, that sense of risk, is exactly what fuels him. This isn't just a transfer rumor. This is a potential reconfiguration of the sport's DNA. If Verstappen aligns with Mercedes, it won't just tilt the balance of power, it will detonate it. Sponsors will follow. Engineers will reconsider contracts. Young drivers eyeing Red Bull's pipeline will pause. Because the idea that even Max Verstappen, the symbol of Red Bull's golden era, is willing to walk away, sends a chilling message: loyalty in F1 only lasts as long as vision does. The symbolism is impossible to ignore. Red Bull built him, nurtured him, weaponized him. And now, as the team begins to resemble a version of itself he no longer recognizes, the man they crafted is contemplating leaving it all behind. Not out of spite, but out of ambition. The ambition to write a second chapter even more legendary than the first. To take on a new project, a new culture, a new philosophy, and prove that greatness isn't tied to a chassis or a logo, but to the driver behind the wheel. As the 2025 season approaches, the tension will only escalate. Every quote, every pit wall conversation, every on-camera exchange between Max and his engineers will be dissected for clues. And when 2026 finally arrives, either Verstappen will be standing as Red Bull's last hope, or he'll be leading Mercedes into a new era, wearing a different uniform, carrying the same hunger, ready to rewrite the story all over again. And if that happens, Formula may first never be the same. Subscribe to stay informed about the latest Formula One news. Only a select few truly understand the magnitude of what's unfolding behind the scenes. To the casual observer, it might appear as just another whisper in the ever-spinning rumor mill of Formula One. But to those plugged into the intricate networks of power that run beneath the surface of the sport, it's becoming clearer with every passing hour: something massive is in motion. It's not speculation anymore, it's orchestration. Toto Wolff isn't merely entertaining the idea of bringing Max Verstappen to Mercedes. He's meticulously building the runway for the most audacious power move in modern motorsport history. Forget loyalty. Forget branding. Forget even the legacy of Red Bull's dominance. This is about the future. About rewriting the DNA of competition. About engineering a new dynasty from the ashes of frustration and lost supremacy. Since 2021, Mercedes has been navigating choppy waters, their dominance disrupted, their title-winning formula shaken. And yet, while others saw decline, Wolff saw recalibration. Not retreat, restructure. Now, with the 2026 regulation overhaul rapidly approaching, he's accelerating a plan that's been years in the making. And central to that vision is a name that commands immediate respect and fear: Verstappen. The private meeting in Sardinia wasn't coincidence. It wasn't some casual, friendly chat between rivals. It was a meticulously timed move, an act of deliberate intent. Sources deep within the Mercedes operation have confirmed that the conversation went far beyond surface-level interest. It was a technical briefing disguised as a lunch. Performance data was shared. Conceptual sketches of the 2026 chassis were reviewed. Strategic goals were outlined. The future of the power unit, its torque curve, energy deployment strategy, weight distribution modeling, was discussed in detail. And most importantly, the role Max could play in leading not just the team, but the philosophy of how Mercedes would attack the next era of Formula One. Wolff laid everything bare. There were no exaggerations. He didn't pretend Mercedes was already back on top. He didn't hide the challenges. He acknowledged that the current car has limitations, that consistency is still elusive. He praised George Russell's commitment and potential. He emphasized that Antonelli's rise is being carefully managed. But none of it was meant to sugarcoat the truth. Because as formidable as those drivers may be, neither is the generational weapon Verstappen has proven to be. This isn't just about speed. It's about surgical consistency. About psychological dominance. Max doesn't need a perfect car to win. He just needs a platform to extract the impossible. He has mastered the art of control under chaos, pushed cars beyond their theoretical limits, and dismantled rivals without flinching. He is relentless. He is strategic. He is brutal when it matters most. And Toto knows that if Mercedes wants to not just return to winning, but to rule again, They need a driver who embodies that exact profile. But what makes this even more fascinating is how Verstappen himself is responding. Publicly, he's said little. But privately, those close to him confirm he's more aware than ever of Red Bull's internal fractures. The ongoing power struggles within the Milton Keynes camp, the reputational damage circling Christian Horner, the political tension between key stakeholders, none of it has gone unnoticed. For a driver who's always craved stability, clarity, and total competitive focus, the distractions are no longer avoidable. And while he has remained loyal to the team that elevated him, Verstappen is not married to chaos. He doesn't owe anyone blind allegiance. He owes himself the best chance to build a legacy that stands taller than statistics. Wolff didn't offer a contract. He offered influence. A voice in the technical process. A role in the cultural reset of Mercedes. A chance to become more than just a driver, to become the defining force behind the team's rebirth. No gimmicks. No PR gloss. Just a raw, honest blueprint. You bring the precision, we'll give you the power. And here's the catch. Verstappen is tempted. Not because he needs a new challenge. Not because he wants to leave a burning house. But because the idea of building something from the ground up and watching it rise, faster, cleaner, and stronger than before, is seductive in a way few drivers can resist. Especially someone like Max, who thrives on proving everyone wrong, who feeds off the challenge of conquering the unknown, and who dreams not of following footsteps, but of leaving his own path behind. There's a reason the whispers in the paddock have grown louder. There's a reason other teams are suddenly on edge, why PR statements are being drafted, why Mercedes mechanics are working late nights. Because this isn't just about one transfer. It's about reshaping the grid. It's about sending a message that the next chapter of Formula One won't be written by whoever sits on top today, but by those bold enough to seize tomorrow before it arrives. And if Verstappen makes that leap, if he chooses to walk into the Mercedes garage and make it his own, the aftershocks will ripple far beyond the driver market. It will be the ultimate checkmate. A masterstroke of timing, ambition, and vision. The story isn't over. It's only just beginning. It was only a matter of time before the conversation turned toward the element that could make or break the entire operation, the drivers. And when it did, the atmosphere changed completely. This wasn't a casual exchange of ideas. It became surgical, ruthless, clinical. Because when Max Verstappen's name entered the equation, everything else faded into the background. This wasn't about who could fit where, or which driver might adapt best. This was about constructing a future around one individual, unquestioned, unchallenged, and unopposed. Sources with intimate knowledge of the inner circle confirmed that Verstappen laid his cards on the table with surgical clarity. There was no dramatic confrontation. No emotional undertones. Just brutal honesty. He does not see a world where he thrives while sharing equal footing with George Russell. It's not personal. It's strategic. It's rooted in pure, mathematical logic. Verstappen doesn't want to split control. He doesn't want to negotiate leadership. He believes that championship dynasties are built around a singular focal point, a force so dominant that the team bends around it. And in his mind, that force cannot be diluted. Verstappen is known for being direct, but in this case, his message was even sharper than usual. From what is leaked behind the curtain, he reportedly explained that George Russell, despite all his pace, his discipline, and the years of promise behind him, simply doesn't have the traits to lead a title charge. Not against the relentless demands of a 24-race season. Not under pressure. Not when perfection is the minimum standard. Verstappen doesn't want potential. He wants fire. He wants control. And most of all, he wants a team that doesn't hesitate when choosing who to build around. For him, there's no room for political balancing acts. Either the car, the strategy, the resources, the entire machine, either all of it bends to him, or the deal doesn't happen. That kind of demand would normally trigger panic. George Russell is no ordinary driver. He's been Mercedes' investment for years. He was groomed through their development ladder. He was the future they were betting on. Removing him doesn't just break a lineup, it dismantles a plan, a roadmap, a philosophy. But in the current climate, where results have stalled, where the constructors' standings no longer feature silver at the top, and where the future is more uncertain than ever, sentiment is losing power. And that shift in energy, that desperation for a resurrection, was exactly what caught the attention of Ola Kalinius. The Mercedes CEO, known for being measured and conservative in public, has now privately given the clearest green light yet. This isn't an internal debate anymore. It's a mission. A priority. Verstappen is the target, and the operation is fully underway. According to those close to the core of Mercedes' executive team, the blueprint has been drawn. The financial structure is already being assembled, and it is unlike anything Mercedes has ever offered to any driver in its history, including the most expensive contracts of Lewis Hamilton's prime. A 4-year agreement is being tailored, carrying a total estimated value of over $100 million. But it goes far beyond base salary. We're talking about custom performance bonuses, leadership influence, image rights, brand equity opportunities, and personal sponsorship integrations. Verstappen wouldn't just be driving the car, he'd be imprinting his legacy into the DNA of the Mercedes empire. He wouldn't be another cog in the machine. He'd be the engine itself. And the stakes? They couldn't be higher. Mercedes is running out of time. They've tried everything: development resets, concept changes, leadership restructuring, simulator overhauls, but nothing has reignited the fire of 2020. What they need now isn't just technical brilliance. They need a symbol, a force of nature, a driver who doesn't flinch, doesn't fade, and doesn't lose. Verstappen is exactly that. He represents speed, precision, dominance, and most importantly, certainty. If they land him, they don't just improve their chances. They send a message to the entire sport: the king has changed kingdoms. And the ripple effect would be immediate. Red Bull would be thrown into chaos. Their golden age would be fractured. Ferrari would scramble to protect their structure. McLaren would be forced to accelerate their long-term timeline. Aston Martin would panic. Every team on the grid would be forced to adjust. Because Verstappen doesn't just change a team, he changes the entire gravitational field of Formula One. Wherever he goes, power follows. Attention shifts. Pressure multiplies. He drags performance out of machines that shouldn't be winning. He breaks patterns. He rewrites scripts. And deep down, Mercedes knows this. That's why the conversations aren't slowing down, they're accelerating. Behind the scenes, private jets are being chartered. Legal teams are preparing draft agreements. Marketing departments are running projections. Even suppliers and sponsors are being prepped for what could be the biggest driver transfer since Lewis Hamilton left McLaren. Verstappen to Mercedes wouldn't just be a story, it would be an earthquake. No one's confirming it on record yet. But inside the walls of Brackley, the tone has changed. There's a quiet, intense focus now. And within Max's camp, there's a sense that something massive is taking shape. He's not chasing money. He's chasing empire. He's chasing immortality. And Mercedes, hungry, wounded, and fearless, might just give him the stage to build it. The question isn't if this move could happen. The question is, who's going to stop it? It was a simple phrase, almost tossed into the wind, but it cracked open the door to one of the most seismic possibilities in recent Formula One history. Nelson Piquet Jr., speaking with the casual indifference of someone who knows far more than he's letting on, dropped a comment after Silverstone that would have gone unnoticed, if not for the weight of his connection to Max Verstappen. Maybe next year Max will be there, he said, when asked about Mercedes' struggles. It wasn't scripted. It wasn't planned. But it felt real. Too real. A statement that wasn't meant to land, but hit like a thunderclap across the paddock. Coming from any other voice, it might have been dismissed. But this wasn't just idle chatter. This was Verstappen's brother-in-law, someone with access to the personal side of the reigning world champion. The private dinners. The off-the-record frustrations. The inside knowledge that never makes it to press releases. And while Max likely didn't authorize the comment, the fact it slipped through suggests something is brewing behind the scenes. Something big, something explosive, something that could flip the balance of power in Formula One on its head. The timing couldn't be more perfect, or more devastating, depending on where you're standing. Red Bull's aura of control has been crumbling. What was once a fortress of engineering excellence and internal cohesion has turned into a shaky tower of egos and fractured leadership. With Adrian Newey no longer guiding the technical direction, the team is visibly struggling to maintain the dominance it once took for granted. The RB platform, once untouchable, now looks beatable. Updates lack punch. Performance gains have plateaued. And worst of all, there's a visible lack of confidence rippling through the garage. Verstappen isn't just watching, he's calculating. He's always been one step ahead, not just behind the wheel, but in reading the trajectory of teams, personnel, and performance trends. He doesn't tolerate stagnation. He doesn't make emotional choices. And what he sees now is a team in decline. Red Bull is still fast, but it's no longer invincible. And for a driver with 3 titles and a legacy to protect, sticking around while the ship takes on water isn't an option. He wants more. He expects excellence. And he knows exactly where he might find it next. Enter Mercedes, a team desperate to claw its way back to the top, one that sees Verstappen not just as a driver, but as the crown jewel of a new empire. The idea of him wearing silver overalls was once the stuff of fantasy, but now it's an objective backed by strategy and urgency. Behind closed doors, talks have intensified. The path is being cleared. Max's team is engaged. Mercedes' leadership is aligning. The concept is no longer a hypothetical, it's being engineered. And all it took was one careless quote to bring it into the light. At the center of this potential storm is not just Verstappen, but the structure Mercedes is quietly assembling around him. Toto Wolff, the architect of one of the most successful dynasties the sport has seen, is stepping into a more global role. His eyes are now set on long-term influence, broader reach, and future-proofing the brand beyond day-to-day operations. That leaves space for someone else to step in, to shape the racing arm with autonomy. Whether it's Christian Horner, as some wild reports suggest, or another elite tactician, Mercedes is preparing for a full reset. And Verstappen would be the cornerstone. Then there's the matter of Antonelli. The teenage sensation burdened with expectations he never asked for, thrown into the spotlight before he was ready. Originally, the plan was to place him in a smaller team, let him breathe, let him grow. That blueprint was shredded by necessity. He now finds himself alongside George Russell in 2025, trying to prove he belongs. But every race is a trial. Every error is magnified. And with Verstappen potentially entering the picture, the calculus around Antonelli shifts completely. He won't be cast aside, but he will be moved. That's where Alpine comes in. With the Renault-powered squad set to become a Mercedes customer in 2026, an opportunity emerges for Antonelli to continue his growth without the glare of the Mercedes spotlight. He gets a full factory engine, access to elite infrastructure, and the time to evolve. It's a win-win. The young gun gets space to develop, while the main squad becomes a weaponized machine led by Verstappen and anchored by the more seasoned Russell. It's bold. It's ruthless. And it's exactly the kind of strategic aggression that defines championship teams. Behind the scenes, conversations are intensifying. Sponsors are intrigued. Engineers are whispering. Staff movements are being evaluated. If Verstappen makes the leap, nothing stays the same. The paddock would erupt. Red Bull would enter crisis mode. Teams that once thought they had time to catch up would suddenly find themselves lapped in vision, talent, and execution. The psychological blow alone would send ripple effects across every garage. The reigning champion turning his back on the very machine he built his empire with? That's not just a transfer. That's a statement. A declaration. A shift in the gravitational center of the sport. And for Verstappen, it's not about loyalty, it's about legacy. He's done the unthinkable with Red Bull. But history doesn't reward those who settle. It celebrates those who conquer again and again, in new eras, under new banners. If he moves to Mercedes and wins there, he doesn't just become a great, he becomes immortal. The temptation is undeniable. The stage is being set. And every move from now until the winter break will be dissected, analyzed, and interpreted as part of a larger high-stakes chess game where the king might just decide to change sides. The sport is holding its breath. Red Bull is scrambling. Mercedes is smiling. And Verstappen? He's watching it all unfold, knowing full well that when he decides to act, Formula One will never be the same again. Unless, of course, it's George Russell who ends up being the sacrifice in what could become the boldest reshuffling of power in modern Formula One. It's a possibility that seems cruel, almost unthinkable, yet in the cutthroat world of elite motorsport, feelings take a back seat to results, and history has shown time and time again that even the most promising drivers can be discarded the moment a generational talent becomes available. Russell has done everything Mercedes asked of him. He waited patiently while serving time in the midfield at Williams, stepped into the main team with professionalism, delivered solid results, outqualified Hamilton on several Saturdays, and even snatched his first win in a moment of brilliance. But when the name on the table is Max Verstappen, the entire equation shifts from hopeful trajectory to immediate execution. Loyalty becomes a luxury. The future becomes now. Within the halls of Brackley, conversations are becoming more frequent, more serious, more delicate. There is no official decision yet. But key figures are running simulations, crunching scenarios, analyzing the fallout of what such a move would entail. Verstappen is more than just fast, he's magnetic. He attracts engineers, he draws sponsors, and he delivers results that bend championship tables in ways few others can. He's relentless, unforgiving, and absolutely lethal when given the right machinery. And if Red Bull continues to unravel, if the internal fractures between Horner, Marko, Newey, and Verstappen continue to deepen, then Mercedes must be ready. Ready not just to negotiate, but to completely restructure itself to become Max's new kingdom. The internal pressure is mounting. The idea of pairing Verstappen with the fading legend of Hamilton's past is gone. Lewis is headed elsewhere. The vision now is built around dominance, around reclaiming the throne from Red Bull with their own weapon. And if Mercedes truly wants to rule again, there's a creeping belief that Max is the only one who can carry that weight. But making space for him would mean rewriting their story with George. A driver who was never a placeholder, who was promised the future, who endured the chaos of a rebuilding team, suddenly becoming the odd one out in a master plan he never saw coming. And this isn't just a garage-level decision. It echoes across every department. Marketing execs are already toying with visuals of Verstappen in silver, imagining what that image could do for global branding, fan engagement, and merchandise. Commercial partners are being discreetly surveyed. What would it mean to have the most dominant driver of this generation wearing the three-pointed star? The answers are electrifying. Verstappen doesn't just win races, he commands global attention. He sells. He dominates headlines. He polarizes and attracts in equal measure. And for a team desperate to rise from the ashes, that kind of electricity is irresistible. But what about George? That's the uncomfortable question no one dares to answer publicly. Privately, some believe he would walk if the deal is struck. Others think he might be offered a soft landing, maybe a move to another works team, or a carefully negotiated transition that shields him from the brutal optics of being replaced. But the reality is far starker. If Max arrives, the spotlight shifts entirely. Russell's influence would diminish. His status would shrink. He'd no longer be the face of Mercedes' future. He'd become a footnote in a story rewritten by Verstappen's arrival. And that's the kind of psychological blow that no racer, no matter how composed, takes lightly. For now, it's all whispers. But the energy is changing. There's a hum of anticipation, the sense that something massive is coming. Verstappen's camp is quiet, but not silent. They're watching, calculating, listening to every tremor coming from the Red Bull camp. And if they decide it's time to go, if the door creaks open even slightly, Mercedes won't hesitate. They'll make space. They'll burn whatever bridges they need to. They'll rewire the entire system to make him the nucleus of a new empire. The cost? It could be enormous. Not just financially, but emotionally, structurally, even spiritually. Mercedes has spent years crafting a culture of balance, of unity, of respect. Verstappen's arrival would append that equilibrium. He demands full commitment, total control, zero compromise. He brings results, yes, but he also brings pressure, intensity, and expectations that never ease. It's a gamble that could either relaunch the team into a new golden era, or rip it apart from within if the foundation isn't ready to hold the weight of his ambition. And that's why this moment feels so critical, so fragile, because everything is hanging in the balance. Russell's future, Mercedes' rebirth, Verstappen's legacy. The entire shape of Formula One for the next 5 years could pivot on a single decision. Do they stay the course, or chase greatness? Do they reward loyalty, or choose the path of ruthless excellence? And if they do bring Max through the door, how do they handle the fallout, the betrayal, the seismic impact that will ripple through the sport? Whatever happens, one thing is clear: if Verstappen truly becomes available, no team in their right mind would ignore that signal. And if Mercedes chooses to act, they won't just sign a driver, they'll set the entire F1 world on fire. Everything is shifting beneath the surface, and yet, to the outside world, it still appears calm. But don't be fooled, this isn't calm. This is the quiet before the explosion. Behind the curtain, behind every press conference smile, behind every vague media quote and carefully rehearsed interview, a decision is brewing that could flip the entire Formula One grid upside down. The most dominant driver of this generation, Max Verstappen, may be preparing to make the boldest move of his career. The man who was once inseparable from Red Bull, who built an empire alongside the very people now leaving it behind, is closer than ever to walking away. Not out of anger. Not for money. But for legacy. For power. For total control of his destiny. This is not speculation anymore. It's a wave that's growing stronger with every passing hour. The paddock knows it. Journalists sense it. Rival teams feel it in the air. Verstappen isn't acting like someone who's locked in. He's moving like someone already halfway out the door. Because Red Bull, as it once was, no longer exists. The pieces that kept Max connected, the leaders, the engineers, the visionaries, are either gone or fading into the background. Christian Horner's future remains tangled in scandal and shadows. Adrian Newey, the design genius behind the championship winning machines, is making his exit. And what's left? A structure collapsing under the weight of its own uncertainty. Max doesn't want to be stuck in a system losing its identity. He doesn't want to wait for Red Bull to rediscover itself. He wants to keep winning. He wants to keep dominating. But more than that, he wants to define his own story, on his own terms. He's already rewritten what it means to dominate a season. Now, he's eyeing something bigger. A new challenge. A fresh battleground. He wants to prove that it wasn't just the car, or the team, or the timing. That it was him. Always him. And there's one team quietly preparing the perfect platform for that evolution: Mercedes. Toto Wolff isn't sleeping. He's not watching this unfold with idle curiosity. He's orchestrating. Every word he says is measured. Every silence is intentional. While Red Bull fights to keep its empire from falling apart, Wolff is constructing something calculated and dangerous. He's not just thinking about the next race or the next season, he's building the next dynasty. And at the center of that vision, one name keeps coming up behind closed doors: Verstappen. Bringing Max to Mercedes wouldn't just be a driver signing, it would be a power move of historic proportions. It would be the equivalent of a king switching kingdoms mid-reign. Verstappen arriving at Brackley would ignite a new era, not just for the Silver Arrows, but for the entire sport. It would be a message, loud and clear, that Mercedes isn't interested in rebuilding slowly. They're ready to strike back. And with Max in their arsenal, they wouldn't just be contenders, they'd be terrifying. But what about George Russell? What about Antonelli, the rising prodigy waiting in the wings? That's the puzzle. Does Mercedes go all in and build the future around Verstappen and Antonelli, phasing Russell out despite his speed and loyalty? Or do they attempt the unthinkable, balancing 3 stars, 3 egos, 3 timelines into a single strategic masterpiece? Wolff has never backed down from a complex scenario, and if he believes Verstappen can elevate everything around him, he'll make it work. He always does. The negotiations? Already in motion. The quiet meetings in hotel suites. The private phone calls routed through lawyers. The aircraft movements tracked by fans with satellite precision. It's all real. All happening now. The biggest move in modern F1 might not come with fireworks or dramatic fanfare, but with a single simple press release that rewrites the entire landscape overnight. Verstappen isn't chasing dollars, he has them. He isn't hunting status, he owns it. What he's after now is immortality. And he knows that to get there, he may have to walk away from the very team that gave him everything. It's not betrayal. It's evolution. The same way Hamilton left McLaren. The same way Schumacher walked away from Benetton. Greatness demands reinvention. So what happens next? Red Bull is clinging to what remains of its structure. Internally, they're panicking, whether they admit it or not. Because they know if Max goes, it all crumbles. The sponsors shift. The morale drops. The aura of invincibility fades. And the rivals? They smell blood. Ferrari is watching. Aston Martin is watching. But Mercedes is acting. This isn't just a story about contracts and negotiations. This is about the soul of the sport. About the future of dominance. And when the moment finally arrives, when the silence is broken, when Verstappen's next destination is announced, the shock won't just ripple through fans. It will detonate through every level of Formula One, from engineers and team bosses to drivers and shareholders. It'll change how teams think, how fans believe, how history is written. So what do you think? Is this the ultimate move for Verstappen? Has Red Bull already lost him? Is Mercedes about to pull off the most audacious signing in years? And can Toto Wolff truly manage the storm that comes with adding a driver like Max to a team already brimming with ambition? We want to hear every opinion, every theory, every wild prediction. Drop them in the comments now. And once you've done that, tap into the next video waiting on your screen. It exposes the secret negotiations already unfolding behind the scenes, the coded language in Toto's latest interviews, and why Verstappen's future might be the single biggest shift F1 has seen in decades.